Sheriff Ozzie talks with community leaders about issues in the public safety arena, sponsored by River Ridge Hardware.
This is Sheriff Ozzie with the Sheriff's Report. It's good to talk with you today. We're going to continue with our discussion on the principle or the claim that the media is under attack. And the reason I'm talking about this is I received an email, and that email, as you can see, is in front of you, and it just baffled me. It truly baffled me. We tend to think of hate directed towards particular people based on their ethnicity or other such characteristics: blacks, Jews, LGBTQ people, Muslims, immigrants, and so many others. But in the last few years, we have seen hate stoked against the media. Folks, that first sentence just set me back, and the second sentence just pretty much infuriated me. I'm like, how can you compare people's disdain for the media with the suffering of the groups just mentioned? I don't get that. I don't understand that. I don't know how we even get there. But there are people, and it seems like right now I'm focused on the left. Well, if you remember, I focus on everything. I'm an equal opportunity person that will come at anything I see as being disingenuous or that is going to hurt my community. The right has its issues, or the left has its issues. The problem is, both these issues, both these sides, their issues are killing this country. They're destroying the fabric of our society. And that's why I've decided that I won't tolerate it from the left or the right. And when the media, the one organization that we should be able to trust to get us the information we need to make accurate decisions, form our opinions, base our decisions on, is no longer doing that, then there's something wrong. And I've mentioned before, our founding fathers, very wise people, stated that in order for this country, this republic to survive, we have to have a free media. And that's why they gave it constitutional protections. Well, the thing is, the media has to live up to those constitutional protections. So last week, we started with an Inlander article. Sheriff says organizers demanding mental health chat. Folks, they weren't demanding a mental health chat. That's not true. Absolutely not. I have the letter they sent me. They didn't say, hey, let's sit down for a mental health chat. That's not in there. Instead of the Killology event, the quote that I said, and fix their own damn house. Now, last week we talked about, as you see, this is the letter, that opening that the Inlander printed. And then Deacon Jones talking about what he would like, and we covered that last week. But we also covered the fact that Deacon had made the statement that he had gone to African American leaders within this community, and they haven't brought his agenda. They haven't pushed his message. And I was asked a specific question. This was a question. It wasn't an opinion or anything. I was asked a question. What would you say, Sheriff, if Deacon said that he felt as if his African American leadership had not represented him? And I went, I can't fix that. And it sounds more like they need to fix their own damn house before they come at anybody with anything from now on, because it's very confusing at that point. Folks, I've gone to, in the last 14 years, 3 months, I've gone to so many meetings on this issue. I've met with so many people. And yes, it tends to be the same people showing up at all these meetings. But here's the one thing that has never happened. No one has ever actually brought a solution to the table. And I'm done with rhetoric. I'm done with the conversation. I want to change the dynamic. And if they want to help, outstanding. But we are changing that dynamic. We have created programs specifically created for the African American community and their youth that are involved in the gang culture. That program was to get them jobs, to break that cycle, to get them out of that culture. That program is very, very successful in every aspect except for the one dynamic and demographic that was actually created for. So when we talked about clickbait, because that's what that title is. The Inlander title is called clickbait. That is to get you interested and get you willing to, talk about the issue, get you willing to read the story. But we as Americans, and this is our fault, this is our part of the equation, we don't read these stories. We tend to look at the clickbait, and some people stop there, form their opinions based on the clickbait, based on the title. Then there's the hook, which is maybe 1 to 2, 3 paragraphs that really is inflammatory and tries to get you hooked into the story. And if you read long enough, way down here at the bottom, you may get to the facts. But you got to go through a lot of opinion, a lot of, quite frankly, misinformation before you ever get to that fact pattern. One of the things that Deacon said during his interview with the Inlander was that he had started a petition. Well, I've never seen the petition from Deacon, and that will lead into the next article printed by that we're going to cover, printed by the Inlander. And it's about all these thousands of people that are demanding that killology be stopped. Well, I have one such petition. There were 2 that I know of. And the individual that created this one stated that she did a post on June 7th, 2020 on this site that you can create petitions and push them out and try to get signatures. And it says that she started the campaign 24 hours ago, already received 500 signatures. Law enforcement nationwide has shown themselves to be reacting more violently than the people protesting their violence. That's her opinion. Everybody's entitled to one. But I have a problem with that statement because on June 7th, 2020, she said she created it 24 hours prior, but in a note that she gave me that's associated with this petition she sent, she said the petition began on 6/1 of 20. So a little bit of a disparity there. And then she posts further. She contacted Mayor Woodard to get it stopped. She criticizes a video that I put out, and one of the things that she says is, he also stated that before Trump there were no issues. Well, it's fairly misleading and disingenuous on her part. Go to the sheriff's Facebook page, you can find the video. What I actually said was, Dave Grossman really didn't have any issues with any of his training until he was part of a panel for President Trump on violence. And then suddenly the left attacked him very, very hard. I mean, some of the things that they put out are just amazing. amazing. One such was an email that was in reference to one of these petitions to get it signed. And the person said that Colonel Grossman, who is a psychologist, mind you, is teaching police officers to kill without remorse. If I would have read that letter, I would have signed that, but it's not true. And that's how they got these petitions signed. They put out a bunch of untruth. The next slide, she says that, prepared a letter, send it to me, nearly 3,000 or 4,000 signatures. Then she says, haven't heard back from me. Well, you're right. You didn't hear back from me because during that time I was out of town attending to a family member's funeral. You weren't going to hear from me. Matter of fact, the only person that heard from me was, sadly, the Inlander. And Good Morning America. And I'll explain that comment here in a minute. So, let's take a look at the petition. And, the person actually notes in here that, before assuming that all non-Spokane signatures are truly out of town, I had to update something. Folks, out of these nearly 3,800 signatures, there's only about 650 of them that are from Spokane, approximately. It might be 680. I don't have that number in front of me, but it's not 3,800. I went through these things, and I'm not sure what I do with, people from New Zealand that signed this. But that's not just this particular petition. I've had this happen multiple times. People hand me petitions, and I go through and I check the signatures, and I've got them from all over the place, not Spokane centric. So I don't know what to make of these petitions, but the one thing I do wish is our media would be a little bit more cautious about how they portray them. Deacon also goes down and talks about, in the article, to talk about the use of force statistics being skewed toward black people as well as indigenous people and people of color. Well, there was a piece of information that was put out called Mapping Police Violence. And in it, it has the Spokane Police Department ranked number 5 in the nation as far as number of citizens killed per million. And I often caution people, always ask yourself why somebody is doing per million or per something, because I found that it's a way to skew the numbers to look very bad. And I can show you that ad nauseum. Matter of fact, we will show you that through this series. We'll talk about a story from the ACLU that claimed that the Spokane County Sheriff's Office SWAT team, and depending on which answer I want to take, it was either 1 year or 2 year, because I called the ACLU and said, what are you talking about? Was that all of 2011 and all of 2012, or just between 2011 to 2012 1 year? Well, I got both answers, but regardless, they said that we affected 588 African Americans in this community. I was stunned. Doing the research, it was 4. And I'll show you that. So we go on, and the next screenshot is just a bigger blow up of that data. Then you can hover over that statistical information, and it says that gives the population of Spokane at 208,000. Total number of people killed by the police department, it says, is 15. The average annual rate of killings by the police was 10.3. About that time, somebody should be going, What are you talking about? And this is over 7 years, folks. Over 7 years. If the total number of people killed in 7 years was 15, how do you have an average annual rate of 10.3 over 7 years? It'd be like 70 people. Be careful about the data you're looking at and what it's trying to portray. You have to be very, very careful, because that's what happens when you use per million, per 100,000. The actual numbers get kind of skewed, and they're used in this way. If you go down, it shows that African Americans, there was one person killed by the police department in those 7 years that was African American. It shows that there were no Latinos killed and 11 whites. The other, the missing 3 had to be another ethnic group. They don't show it in their rates. So I always caution people, are you sure? Did you really check that? I contacted Chief Meidel. He's going to get me the proper numbers, because I don't think that these are the proper numbers. And we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about where we're going with this. And folks, this is why when I make statements that I really don't have much use for activists, well, this is why. The ACLU story, 588 African Americans, Spokane County SWAT team, was 4. This one, an annual average of 10.3. There's a unique math formula that you have to go into to get to that number. And it will jive out, but it, again, makes it sound different than what it really is. And then you have situations that, like this, that just happened, of NAACP accuses cop of racism. Then the police chief releases video showing the truth. This is out of Hendron, Virginia. And folks, this isn't just a Hendron, Virginia problem. I've had this problem in Spokane. I've dealt with these type of complaints and found them not to be true. But you never hear about that. I talked with Chief Meidel. In the last month and a half, he's had 3 such complaints. And you wonder why I say I really don't have much use for activists. That's why. You're not giving us the truth. We're not on an equal platform at all. Anytime you're willing to use falsehoods to gain a point, you've lost me. I'm done. I don't trust you anymore at that point. Just because I don't trust you doesn't mean I won't work with you, because I have to work with you if we're going to make any kind of change. But my trust level is gone with activists. It's at pegged 0. So when I say that, there's a reason for that. That's not just blustering. That's not me, just being a jerk. That's me telling you exactly why I feel about it, and it's because of situations like this. It's because you're not giving people the straight facts. Because if you take a look at 15 individuals that were killed by the police department, and every one of those were lives, folks. Every one of them. And they were justified shootings. But it doesn't change the fact that they were lives. Those were people. They weren't just numbers. Those were people. And you divide it by 7, you get a 2.8, I believe it is. That's the annual, not 10.3. You have to convert it to per million to get to 10.3 on an annual basis. Next slide just shows that as a blow-up. And then my comment about fixing their houses. This is one of the things that they really need to fix about their houses, is make sure that they present the fact. Folks, my staff will tell you one thing there's one way to get me spun up and send me to the ceiling, and that's to give me bad information that I present to you, the citizen. Has it happened? Every once in a while. And the first thing that happens is we go back and correct that, because I cannot have that bad information out there. But my staff knows that if you're going to give the sheriff information, and he's going to rely on that information to inform our public, it better be as tight as possible. Now, do mistakes get made? Yeah, that's human. Could this have been a mistake? Possible. But not probable. So let's talk about the end of the story about why thousands are calling for the sheriff to cancel the warrior style training. Well, here's your thousands. We covered that. I am going to bring Grossman to Spokane. We've suspended the training. We're bringing him to Spokane because my citizen advisory board, I'm going to have him present to him and a few more citizens. I have a very small venue, fit 50 people. If we have to go with COVID restrictions, that goes down to 25. And we're going to have a discussion. He's going to present his philosophies, and we'll go from there. But here's Grossman on certain things. This is from his book on killing. The people against this training want to portray it as Grossman training cops to kill without remorse. That is, we've seen it. I've read it to you. You've seen it. It's all through here. The problem is that is not what the training is about. On killing, or killology, is about the devastating effects that killing has on our society and on the individuals that are forced to kill. And that includes your law enforcement and your military. Because folks, when we have to do that, that's not something that we want to do. And Grossman will tell you that our goal is never to kill anybody. But that's not what you're being told by the media. That's not what you're being told by, quite frankly, these trolls on Facebook and these activists. That's not what you're being told. So when you take a look at Grossman, he says, we may never understand the nature of this force in man that causes him to strongly resist killing his fellow man. But we can give praise for it to whatever force we hold responsible for our existence. As a race, we can view it with pride. Does that sound like a guy that's teaching people to kill when he's talking about, thank God we have a resistance to killing? Thou shalt not kill. We have an innate, natural inability to kill. Now, there are some people out there that innate ability does not function right. They are stone cold killers. I've met a few. These people, you look in your eyes, you see nothing. You see darkness. I've looked in the eyes of darkness. I've looked in the eyes of hate. These people are scary individuals. Thank God there's not very many of them. Grossman goes on to state that there can be no doubt that this resistance to killing one's fellow man is there, and that exists as a result of a powerful combination of instinctive, rational, environmental, hereditary, cultural, and societal factors. It is there, it is strong. It gives us cause to believe that there just may be hope for mankind after all. Sound like a guy that teaches you to kill? I challenge everyone all the time. Do your own research. One of my citizen advisory board members, anti this training, went online, listened. He says, Sheriff, there were maybe 4 times that he said something that I was, kind of winced at. And there was another 4 times that he mentioned the word warrior, but that's not the gist of the training. He's not teaching you to be warriors. He went and did his own research. Grossman again, killing is the worst thing that one man can do to another man. It is the last thing that should happen anywhere. Now, this is one of the quotes out of his book. Many medical authorities believe that it is the constant hostility and lack of acceptance that they must face and the resulting stress that are responsible for the dramatic rate of high blood pressure in African Americans. Now, that's Grossman. Grossman is very sensitive to the plight of the African American people, to the indigenous people. If you read his book, you'd know that. It's in there. He's very in tune. But you have totally not even taken and given the man a chance. You didn't even do your own research. You didn't read the book. I did. I've read the book multiple times. The Inlander says that a series of police killings of black, Native American, and other minorities over the last decade have reignited anger. That's not a true statement. The death of George Floyd reunited the anger. The death of George Floyd is inexcusable. The death of George Floyd should never have happened, and 800,000 police officers will tell you that. So Deacon goes on about PTSD training. Again, Deacon, and it mentions his signatures that he's gathered on his petition. If you had actually read his book, you would understand what he's talking about. All this started because a local attorney by the name of Andrew Riviano started this on Facebook. And folks, remember I told you I'd talk to you about Good Morning America? Well, while I was out of town, I had to deal with the situation with Good Morning America because they wanted to run a story about something that happened in Spokane County because it got posted on what they now think was a fake Facebook spot. They call it a bot. The Facebook spot was claiming to be Charlie Sheen's, yes, the actor, and it had gone viral. That's how your news is being determined now. That's what's relevancy is, how it's being determined now. I caution you now, and I caution the media now. This thing about Russia influencing things is true, and they do it just that way. They create fake sites, they push negative information, and you are sucking it up and feeding it to the American people. And the American people, we're eating it up. Be careful about what you're looking at, because this started with Andrew Briviano. Andrew's an interesting individual. I know Andrew. I know him well. I've been in his kitchen. I supported his wife's run for office. But the next slide shows just how disingenuous Andrew is. And the reason that Killology is under attack is because I simply said Antifa and socialists were responsible for the riot in Spokane, and they were. But Andrew wants you to believe that we do not discipline anybody for violence. That is not true. There are many people that have been terminated from the sheriff's office for excessive use of force, and we'll cover that in our next show. This is Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by River Ridge Hardware.